It's a Tuesday night here on Long Island, and Jack is back with another episode of All or None According to Jack. Today, we are going to move up a year with our Formative Years series, and we are going to talk about the year, where is it? Right there, 1978. So 1978 was a very fun year for me as a teenager. I would turn 14 that year. I would get a penny saver route, all 220 or whatever papers I would deliver every Saturday or Sunday. It sucked, but hell, it enabled me to start buying record albums and start enhancing my musical experience. And start to get into all these wonderful rock groups of the time. So let's get right into it and talk about some albums of 1978. So 1978 saw the release of a guy who used to be in Steelers Wheel, Jerry Rafferty, with an album called City to City. It was a rare purchase that my mother actually bought, but I got to spin it a lot. The song Right Down the Line and Baker Street and so on and so forth. So that was Jerry Rafferty. Next, we have a band that I'm not too crazy about, but my wife likes them, Journey, with an album called Infinity. Next, you have the Motor City Madman, Ted Nugent, with a double live album called Double Live Gonzo. Or Double Live Gonzos, I don't know which one, but he's the one who has that famous saying in the album towards the end. Anybody who wants to get mellow can turn around and get the fuck out of here. Good old Uncle Ted. Anyway, so next, my favorite band, although I still didn't know it yet, Judas Priest, came out with a monumental, great, seminal metal record at the time, Stained Class. They would have classics like Exciter and the title track and Beyond the Realms of Death, Saints in Hell, which they would play for the very first time on stage in 2018 when I saw them. Great album. Next, another great band, and these guys would definitely set their mark, and they would basically reinvent hard rock. Of course, I'm talking about the guys from Southern California with that Dutch last name, Van Halen, self-titled, with the guitar tapping and Eruption and Ain't Talking About Love and Atomic Punk. And what was the first song? It escapes me. But anyway, Running with the Devil. That's it. There you go. So, amazing record. So, that's three we have so far. Jerry Rafferty, Judas Priest, Van Halen I bought. From Van Halen, we go to the Village People with the album Macho Man. Oh, unbelievable. Of course, there was, we talked about him in the year 1977, Barry Manilow, with an album called Even Now. We'll talk about his singles in a little while. There was an unknown but growing group at the time called Blondie, with an album called Plastic Letters, Genesis, and then there were three. David Coverdale, North Winds, Hot Tuna, Double Dose. Next band is going to have the word tuna in it also. REO Speedwagon with this very intelligent sounding title of an album. You can tune a piano, but you can't tune a fish. All right. Paul McCartney and Wings with a great album. London Town. April Wine, a band out of Canada. I believe they're from New Brunswick or Nova Scotia. They were a very good album, a very good band, with an album called First Glance. Then, as I flipped through the record stores, the record racks, I saw this strange album by a band called the Ruddles. I'm like, what the hell are the Ruddles? Basically, it was self-titled, but they were made to look like a parody of the Beatles. And I looked really closely, and who's that? Eric Idle of Monty Python. Too funny. Okay. A band that would hit it big in the early 80s, but still relatively unknown before New Wave took off. Squeeze, the self-titled album. Then there was a prog rock band called UK, who ended up, when I saw Jethro Tull in '79, they opened their self-titled debut. Then there was the band, The Last Waltz. Rainbow, long live rock and roll. Another great album. AC/DC, Powerage, Joe Walsh. But seriously, folks, the Kinks with an album called Misfits. Foghat, Stone Blue. Peter Gabriel with his self-titled debut album, having left Genesis. The Rolling Stones, Some Girls. A little bit of a different sound by them, but hey, hell, I give them credit for, trying to keep up with the times and being relevant for several more years. The Cars, self-titled album. And that was an album that I bought. Oh, look at that. I skipped two. And these are two that I bought. Jethro Tull, Heavy Horses, Aaron Kupperberg's favorite album that he mentioned in our top 10 rankings of Jethro Tull. And then there's another one that I bought by Cheap Trick, Heaven Tonight, with the first kickoff track, Surrender. All right, another album that I bought, and this band became like a real hit machine in those late '70s years. Talking about Foreigner with the album Double Vision. Title track was a hit. Hot Blooded, Blue Morning, Blue Day. Very good album. UFO, Obsession. Then there was this compilation of Sgt. Pepper's, various different bands, but I think it was mainly the Bee Gees and Peter Frampton. Aerosmith made an appearance. Didn't care for it. Boston came out with their second album called Don't Look Back. I actually was flipping through some videos on YouTube recently and saw a Boston concert that they did at Giant Stadium back in like '78, '79. I have to tell you, I wasn't terribly impressed, but their studio album, their early studio albums, good stuff. The Who Are You? By the way, I did buy Boston Don't Look Back. Another new wave band, or quasi new wave punk band, Devo. Are we not men? We are Devo. I can only get that image out of my head of them jumping up in unison in that live song they played on Saturday Night Live. Too funny, with those little weird looking Lego hats or whatever you want to call them. The Scorpions, Tokyo Tapes. Styx, Pieces of Eight. Southern rock greats, Molly Hatchet with their self-titled debut. I would become a big fan of theirs for a couple of years, late 70s, early 80s, and would see them a few times. Okay, so now we have to talk about Kiss. This was about the time I started to really get into Kiss. And so in 77, they released Love Gun, then they released Alive 2. And I'd say I became a fan right after they released Alive 2. And I was like waiting and waiting and waiting. I couldn't wait to be able to buy their first album off the right off the rack, that, you know, the day it came out. Unfortunately, that first album that came out once I became a big fan was this greatest hits compilation called Double Platinum. I mean, I really wanted to buy an album, so I bought it, but probably a dumb purchase because I had all those songs already. But later in the year, I was totally not ready for this. And we will bring it up. Kiss solo albums. So if you look over my right shoulder by the by the amp, you see Ace Frehley. You see by the bass drum, there's Peter Criss, and then all the way, nope, that way, Peter and Gene, Paul and Gene. So just to talk about these albums really quickly, I know there's been a lot of discussion over the years. A lot's been said about them. Which one's the best? Which one sucks? So I'll give you my order. So for me, quite easily, Ace Frehley's is the best. Who would have thunk it? They all tried to have hit songs off their albums, but it would only be Ace Frehley who would have the only hit song, New York Groove. But I remember dropping that needle down for the first time and hearing Rip It Out. I'm like, way to go, Ace. Good stuff. Second for me would be Paul Stanley. So his and Ace's, probably they played it closest to the vest, sounded closest to Kiss. For me, number 3 would be Gene's. After Radioactive, no, I'm sorry, Gene. It's like you tried too hard to sound like some kind of Hollywood supergroup type deal, or with your Beatlesque songs and your Helen Reddy and Donna Summer and Rick Nielsen and Joe Perry and Cher, even all these people, on your album. It was a farce. Rumor has it you flew everybody to England to record this. Why? And then, of course, there was Peters, who came in dead last for me. And that's a very polarizing topic. Peters, there are some that say, good for you sticking to your guns and sticking to your roots. And then there was 14-year-olds like me who didn't really know anything about artistic integrity. I just wanted something that sounded good and kicked some ass and, had some hard rock in it. And you had none of the above. So, no go. Good job, Ace. So, with my little 2-minute discussion about Kiss, we'll take these off the board. There we go. Moving right along. So Yes had an album called Tormato. Later in the year, and this was rare for Jethro Tull to come out with 2 albums in the same year, but they came out with their first live album, Bursting Out. Very good stuff. Blue Oyster Cult, Some Enchanted Evening, another live album. Ted Nugent came out with an album, Weekend Warriors. Chicago. So We'll talk about deaths a little bit later on, but very sadly, Terry Kath passed away earlier that year for Chicago. So they didn't know if they were going to carry on. They were convinced to carry on, so they did. They brought in another guitarist, long blonde-haired guy by the name of Donnie Dacus. So they came out with an album called Hot Streets, and their first single, Alive Again, basically to say, we're back. We had some sadness in our lives, but we're back and we're carrying on. Dire Straits, the self-titled album. Judas Priest came out with a second album in 1978. And this would become the first studio album that I buy. In the US, the album was called Hellbent for Leather. Other parts of the world, and particularly the UK, the album was called Killing Machine. Do-do-do-do-do-do-do. Good song, really good song, Killing Machine. That was a great, great album. Meanwhile, my fellow Long Islander, Billy Joel, had a great album that year, 52nd Street, My Life, Big Shot, good stuff. Another album, so I did buy the Priest album. Another album, and years later, I bought this album for my wife for Christmas, The Carpenters, Christmas Portrait. Nice album to listen to at Christmas time while wrapping gifts and sitting by a crackling fire, etc., etc. AC/DC, If You Want Blood, You've Got It. Toto, their self-titled debut. One of my favorite classic rock songs of that time. Hold the Line, awesome song. Rush, and this was an album that I bought, Hemispheres, Cygnus X1, good stuff. Aerosmith with a live album, Aerosmith Live Bootleg. They actually made their own album and called it a bootleg live album, but it was good. Okay, moving right along. Police, Outlandos D'Amour. I think they were still maybe a year or two away from real popularity, but they were starting to catch on. Queen had an album called Jazz. Grateful Dead, still rocking it. Album called Shakedown Street. Doobie Brothers, Minute by Minute. Led Zeppelin, still no albums. 1978. Okay, notable pop hits. And again, these were pop, rock, you name it. Start off with the Brothers Gibb, the Bee Gees, with Staying Alive. John Travolta, Olivia Newton-John, You're the One That I Want, from the Grease movie. Village People, YMCA, Front to Stay at the Bee Gees, a couple more. Night Fever. At the time, I really hated them, but looking back, I would say Night Fever is probably their best song of 78, for me anyway. How Deep Is Your Love? Another, that's more of a ballad, less of a dance tune. Good song. This song, anytime I think of this song, I think of my Swiffer that I swift the floors with. Player, Baby Come Back. Can't get enough of the Brothers Gibb. Then there's Andy Gibb. Love is Thicker Than Water. Here's another song that I believe was produced by the Bee Gees, but she was on her own, Yvonne Elliman. If I Can't Have You, I Don't Want Nobody, Baby. Chicago, Alive Again, as we mentioned earlier. Another fellow Long Islander. This guy grew up probably one town over to the east. Eddie Money, Baby Hold On. Jerry Rafferty, Baker Street, as I mentioned earlier. Sticks, a great tune given to us by Tommy Shaw, Blue Collar Man. Barry Manilow was very busy in 1978, so he had not one, not two, not three, five hit songs. You ready? Can't Smile Without You. Even Now. Probably my favorite Barry Manilow tune, my guilty pleasure, Copacabana. I would go to the Copacabana for the very first time. Years later, I worked for this place in the city. I used to work for the Michael C. Fina group, believe it or not, and they had their Christmas party at the Copacabana. I guess it was kind of winding down at that time. Wasn't as famous anymore. I don't think it's still in existence. Other hits by Barry, Ready to Take a Chance Again, Somewhere in the Night. Oh man, he was really cranking them. Boston, Don't Look Back, as I mentioned. Kansas, America's answer to prog rock with the hit song Dust in the Wind. Steely Dan, great song from the movie FM, Song FM. Chuck Mangione, an instrumental, Feels So Good. Do, 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 do. You get the drift. Kenny Rogers, The Gambler. You got to know when to hold him, know when to fold him. Frankie Valli, Grease. Grease is the word. Toto, Hold the Line, as I mentioned. Bob Seger, great song, Hollywood Nights. Remember going with my family out to California for the first time. Went to Disneyland. On the second day, we went to Disney California Adventure. We were in one of the gift shops, and Hollywood Nights came on the the background radio. It's the coolest thing. Foreigner, cranking out the hits with Hot Blooded. Nick Gilder, Hot Child in the City. Didn't like the voice. Sorry. Gino Vanelli, I Just Want to Stop. Oh, here's a classic disco tune by Alicia Bridges, I Love the Nightlife. Billy Joel, probably with a really great ballad at that time, Just the Way You Are. That would be played as wedding songs all over for many years to come. The Cars, Just What I Needed. Great song, great album. Donna Summer, another song played at weddings. Unfortunately, this would be the last song of the evening, Last Dance. Joe Walsh, Life's Been Good. I love the 8.5-minute version, especially at the end when he said, here comes a flock of wah-wahs, wah, wah. Waylon Jennings and Willie Nelson, Mamas, Don't Let Your Babies Grow Up to Be Cowboys. Another crossover country hit. My Long Island guy, Billy Joel, My Life, great tune. My man Ace Frehley with Back in the New York Groove. Love it. Meatloaf was really catching on with the hit singles. Paradise by the Dashboard Light. I used to do a very good impersonation of Phil Rizzuto, but I'll spare you tonight. Eric Clapton with a song called Promises, good song. The Buzzcocks, also with a song called Promises. Styx, another Tommy Shaw classic. Renegade, Oh, mama, I'm in fear from my life on the long arm of the law. That's good enough. The B-52s. Do, 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 do. Rock Lobster. Police. I'll spare you. Eddie Murphy does it better than I can when he sings that iconic scene in the movie 48 Hours where Nick Nolte's walking into his cell, ripping the headphones off his head. Meanwhile, he's singing Roxanne. Put on the red light. Dire Straits with a great song. Sultans of Swing. I did see them, I think 79 or 80. Man, that Mark Knopfler all over the neck playing. He was so good. Talking Heads, they still weren't that known yet, but released a great tune, Take Me to the River. ELO, Electric Light Orchestra, Turn to Stone, probably one of my favorites by ELO. Meatloaf, another hit song, more of a ballad, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. Warren Zevon, Werewolves of London. The Who Are You? Not a favorite. I love The Who, but that hit song was not really a favorite of mine. Wow, look at that. I think I have Village People YMCA on the on the list twice. Silly me. Okay, last one. Rod Stewart, You're in My Heart, You're in My Soul. So I'm sure there's a lot more hits. I mean, I just covered the ones that I kind of knew. I grabbed a good chunk of the popular songs of 1978, and hopefully I've given you a bunch. Let's talk about Grammys of 1978. So album of the year, the very first album that I bought, Fleetwood Mac Rumors. Record of the year, the Eagles, Hotel California. Song of the year, and it was a tie, Evergreen, Barbra Streisand, and You Light Up My Life, Debbie Boone. Best New Artist, Debbie Boone. Best Pop Vocal Performance for a female, Barbra Streisand. For a male, James Taylor. For a group, the Bee Gees, Brothers Gibb. And Best Pop Instrumental Performance, John Williams with the Star Wars soundtrack. Great movie, great soundtrack. I mean, it was an amazing movie for its time. I'm sure the graphics would get a lot better as the years go on. Of course, it's funny how the prequels actually had better, animatronics and graphics and whatnot, but for its time, Star Wars, A New Hope, great movie. I love that kind of sci-fi. New television for 1978. Welcome to Fantasy Island. Ricardo Montalban and Hervé Villechaize. Good morning, boss. How the West Was Won. The Incredible Hulk. Dallas. The Ted Knight Show. Now, Ted Knight, I thought he was hilarious on that show, Too Close for Comfort, but particularly in the movie Caddyshack. I thought he was just so hysterical playing that curmudgeon-y type character. Taxi. What does a yellow light mean? Gotta love River Jim. Of course, there was the Robin Williams show, Mork and Mindy. What I thought was a Star Wars ripoff, Battlestar Galactica. Why? Now here's a show that I did like, WKRP in Cincinnati. Now, for years, me sitting in a cubicle working, I had that Les Nessman dream of having a door to my cubicle. I was half thinking of spray painting, dotted lines so I could simulate a door to my cubicle. And of course, there was different strokes. So deaths that year. And very sadly, we lost Terry Kath of Chicago, self-inflicted gunshot wound. I think we all know what happened. I won't really get into it again, but I don't think they were ever the same. Years later, I would see them get inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I did attend that event in 2016, I believe. His daughter was there to accept the award on his behalf. And I believe she did make a movie that's on YouTube, free movie, about the life of Terry Kath. You should check it out. It's pretty cool. Then there was Sandy Denny, folk singer, and the only female to do, or the only singer to do a duet with Robert Plant on one of Led Zeppelin's albums. Of course, I'm talking the song Battle of Evermore on Led Zeppelin 4. And of course, there was Keith Moon of The Who. Very sad. Yeah, what can I say? Losing Terry Kath and Keith Moon in the same year was just very tough. Rock and Roll Heaven gained a couple of really good ones that year. Movies. The Superman movie with Christopher Reeve. Grease, as we mentioned earlier. Animal House. I remember trying to sneak into the theater to see that, and of course they caught me and they kicked me out. Oh, what are you going to do? Jaws 2. Cheech and Chong's Up in Smoke. You mean we smoking dog shit, man? Love that line. Revenge of the Pink Panther. The Deer Hunter. Dawn of the Dead. For all of you Monsters Den Monsters Den fans. Good Guys Wear Black. That's a movie that I saw with Chuck Norris. The Boys from Brazil. And the Oscar goes to The Deer Hunter. And that wraps up 1978. Was a very good year in the annals of rock and roll. I still wouldn't see any concerts at that time, but I would in 1978, so stay tuned for that. As I mentioned last night's episode, if you like the content, please subscribe to my channel. Please leave your comments in the comments section. I hope you enjoy the content. I'm forever trying to come up with ways to make it better. Tomorrow night, I will be a guest on Steve Keeler's Rock Fantasy. We're going to have some discussions about the late, great Jimi Hendrix, another one who's gracing us in rock and roll heaven. It's taken too soon. We love you, Jimmy. That's going to be a fun discussion tomorrow night. So this is Jack Toledano signing off for All and Not According to Jack. Have a good night, all. Bye.